Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Once a DJ. If you'd like to support the show, then head to onceadj.com/support to find out how you can help. If you'd like to get in touch with any feedback or suggestions, email onceadjpodcast@gmail.com. Once a DJ is produced by the good people at Remote Control. If you'd like to find out more about working with them, head to remote-ctrl.co.uk. Time for the show. Once a DJ is brought to you with the support of Vinyl Underground Record Store. Since 1993, VU has been shipping new and used underground house, techno, disco, hip-hop, soul and more worldwide from Northampton in the UK. They're your go-to store for upfront releases, repressed classics and deep digging for undiscovered gems. And they're a great crew to deal with who really care about the music and their customers. To show the support to the Once a DJ community, they're giving you 10% off your next order. Just head to vinylunderground.co.uk and use the code ONCEADJ10 at checkout. You also get free UK delivery on all orders over £100. That's ONCEADJ10 at vinylunderground.co.uk. Right, let's see where we get to. So welcome back everyone to Once a DJ. We're here this week with Philly legend, hip-hop legend, very influential 80s hip-hop DJ with just the craziest of stories based on the research I've got. This seems to be one of those where it's kind of like, when's the film coming out sort of thing, you know. DJ Too Tuff, how are you doing today?
Very good, man. My pleasure to be on Once a DJ.
Great. So as I sort of mentioned earlier, we just kind of need to get into your story really because there's a lot there. So, I mean, firstly, where did music sort of come in for you? You grew up in Philly. Was it on the north side?
Yeah, definitely the north side. We call it the danger zone. I just started doing an exercise called 100 moments. And it instructs you to write down 100 moments from your life. So I'm on like 10. Most of them are crime related at this point, but I'll get to the good ones as well. But my journey of music started when my mom took me to this little record store downtown in Philly called Funko Mart, and she went in there to buy incense and tarot cards and stuff like that. But they also had records and turntables and speakers and stuff. So the first record that I bought was by The Sequence. The female group that was on Sugar Hill Gang, because I saw the cornucopia sitting over there on a record shelf, and I picked one up. My mom bought it for me. 12-inch singles were $2.99 at that time, and that was the first record that I bought that was hip hop. Prior to that, I did have a cassette tape where I used to listen to Rappin' Duke and Jimmy Spicer, Super Rhyme. And I listened to Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, Take the Train, Super Rapping number 2. So those were some of my, friends by Houdini. Those were some of the earliest, hip hop songs that I heard.
Yeah. So was there kind of much of a scene for it, or was it just you through the sort of journeys with your mum?
Yeah, that just happened. I mean, I had, like I said, I had a cassette tape with a few songs on there. My mom had records, so I used to listen to her records, her and my dad's records, the Commodores, Stevie Nicks, John Denver, so I had my hands on vinyl, and I had a friend that lived a couple blocks past where I wasn't supposed to go that far, and my mom was like, "Don't go up that far, you're going to get killed up there." So I ended up going up there, and for the first time, I looked in his basement. And I saw that they was down there scratching. They had crates of records and big speakers, and they was down there scratching. This was on Marshall and Thompson in North Philly. And I got introduced to him. His name is Yo-Yo Anthony Ray. Became my best friend. Taught me how to scratch. Taught me what a mixer was. Taught me what a 1200 was. How to fix the needles. If they were jumpy, by putting a quarter or a penny on top of it. Or we even had a better trick where we took a piece of a Q-tip, the cotton from a Q-tip, and we put it underneath the stylus in the middle of it, so it would stabilize the needle from moving back and forth. Just a little tiny piece of cotton. it doesn't do so well for your records because it digs into the records and it makes the sound deteriorate. But if you just want to go out there and scratch and you don't want the record to jump, a little piece of cotton above the stylus is good in that little hole.
Never heard that before.
Yeah. So he had this collection of cassette tapes, and on the cassette tapes he had Jazzy Jeff, Cash Money, DJ Lightning Rich, Spin Bad, DJ Cosmic Kev, DJ Bones, a lot of different DJs from early Philly times. And they used to do shows at a place called the Wynn Ballroom in West Philly. And it was mostly all scratching with MC would be talking over it, but it was mostly cutting It's Time or cutting Dance to the Drummer's Beat.
Is that the electro It's Time?
Yep.
Right.
So that's what I grew up on, learning how to scratch off of mimicking cassette tapes that we would, rewind and rewind and rewind, hearing certain scratches that they did and mimic those scratches, a little piece of all of those different guys.
Yeah, so out of that list, Lightning Rich is the one that I've kind of heard the name a few times but don't really know anything about, because you kind of think of like Cash Money, Spin Bad, Jeff, Cosmic Kev I might have heard of, but yeah, Lightning Rich is the one where the name feels familiar but I don't really know anything about him.
Lightning Rich was an early Philly pioneer DJ who transformed really early in the game. He was from North Philly, so we knew him better. He was mostly slept on. He had a song that came out called Santa's Groove with an MC named Big John. And they were from Philly, and you had to kind of be deep in the underground of North Philly, Kensington area to see them perform. I wasn't really deep into that area, but when I met Yo-Yo, who passed me, this incredible gift of, how to scratch and all of the history behind it, and he had the tapes to go with it. It was like a tutorial, because at this time there was no internet, there was no YouTube. The year was like 1986. I started to dibble and dabble in 85, but by 86 I had, two 1200s. I worked at Kentucky Fried Chicken down the street from my house and bought my first 1200, and then my mom bought me the second one. And we used to take the equipment out to different basketball courts or wherever we could have a long enough extension cord to plug it in. And we used to do, scratch battles in different parts of the neighborhood. So I grew up like carrying speakers and, pushing carts with turntables and stuff on it. It was fun growing up, 86.
Was it ever kind of nervy taking all your equipment out? Because you were in kind of the tough side of Philly, right?
Yeah, we were in the tougher side of Philly, but we always, with the music stuff, it wasn't like nobody was gonna, I don't know, we never even worried about that. We were just so excited to be going to do a battle. Sometimes we had cars and we would go and set up outside. We didn't always have the big gigantic speakers like that to make it be real loud. So we were just really doing it for us. You know what I mean? We just wanted to do it outside and somewhere where we could plug into the electricity.
Yeah. And like, so how did you say you met Yo-Yo? Sorry, because it sounds like having that sort of meeting and interaction, that's the education in such a formative thing. Like, you're so kind of blessed to have had that, I guess.
Yes. The incredible gift that he passed me that last and still lasts an entire lifetime. Yo-Yo was murdered on that same step where I met him. He got shot in 1997. So we say rest in peace to my man Yo-Yo. But he was a neighborhood kid. He was the lifeguard at a local swimming pool that we all used to go to in 6th and Master. And he was a local DJ too. So it was most likely his car that we were putting the equipment in to drive down to whatever place that we were going to go put it up. Because remember, I didn't know anything about any of that stuff. So I'm just following his lead. His cousin was named Mechanism. And the rapper Mechanism ended up being on a Tough Crew's Back to Rec Shop album on a song called Come On and Go Off. And I met Mech first, and then I met Yo-Yo. And Mechanism became my MC. Before I was the DJ for Tough Crew, I had MC Mechanism.
Right.
And we put out a bunch of different stuff. One thing that's pretty unique that I did with Mechanism and another rapper from Philly called Prime Minister Dope, who appeared on the album, was pretty much the star of the album, an album called Too Brown. And we used to go to the drug corners, which there's a lot of drug corners in this area of Kensington where I grew up at. I lived a little bit south of so much drug activity, but a couple blocks away, and definitely maybe 10 or 15 blocks away, was the epicenter of the heroin, crack, coke powder, cocaine, and all of that. So we used to go up there and take a list of people's names who was out there selling drugs. The big man Jose, Little Juan with the machine gun, Papo holding the bundles, Paquito, the hitman from Puerto Rico. And we used to go home and make a beat and create a song. At that time, I had a MPC 60. We used to go home. I already had a bunch of beats made, so they would write the song about, this drug corner, and we would take them back 10 tapes. And we did that for about 20 or 30 different drug corners. There was another rapper out there that I got into a heated exchange in a street battle, a mixtape battle, so to speak, and his name was Kiski, a Puerto Rican rapper. He was one of the first rappers that ever rhymed in Spanish, probably. This year is like 1984, 85. Right. He's from Philly. Again, Kiski's no longer with us, so I say rest in peace, Kiski. But there was a heated exchange of street tapes and stuff like that between me and Kiski, and it was great to be part of like an unknown and unheralded battle that was going on in this, a pretty big neighborhood. It was pretty, because at that time everybody had a 1.8 with the whole back seat with speakers. So
did it spill out off tape into the streets or anything? Because I know that's been sort of a conversation recently around some of the sort of more high profile beefs that you've had in more recent times, is about whether they stay on record or not.
Well, nothing with Kiski spilled out into the street, but we did see them because at that point in time, Tuff Crew, my part of town was already out, and I had gotten really good between 86 and 89 when when my part of town came out. The first time that I met the boy named Kiski, he was DJing the party that Tuff Crew was performing at, and we were performing only a few blocks from my house. And we arrived there 2 or 3 hours late, and the crowd had already got into a fight and left and stuff like this. So it was a conflict from the start with that. Maybe it was bad energy that initiated it or whatever. But the real reason that went on is because when Tuff Crew broke up, I was looking for a way to compensate my music career and at the same time fill my pockets up. It was the mixtape era. So we started making mixtapes. We had already been making mixtapes, and I worked at Tower Records. So Tower Records used to supply me with, maybe unbeknownst to them, a lot of tapes to run around the neighborhood and sell that I got at Tower. So along with Public Enemy, Eric B. and Rakim, Brand New being, and all of those, we had the Too Tuff tapes that would have like we were talking about, cutting It's Time, cutting, Planet Patrol, stuff like that, electro era stuff.
So let's just rewind a little bit then. First of all, what year was Parkside Killers, Schoolie D?
That was when I first became a DJ very early on. I remember being in my dad's bed, third floor at my dad's house. 84, 85, 86. Yeah, that probably came out in 85.
So did that kind of have an impact locally then about, oh, wow, this is getting so much traction, this is something we could really do something with?
Well, those guys were all like superheroes to me. When I first bought their records and I had a Schoolie D record, or I had a Jazzy Jeff and a Fresh Prince record, or I had an MC Breeze record, or I had 3 Times Dope record, before I actually got to do shows and meet all of those dudes and be in some type of green room situation with them, well, they were like wrestling heroes to me. And once I got to meet them, although maybe on the outside I'm cool, calm, and composed, but on the inside I'm pretty excited about meeting all these, legendary rappers. And back then, nobody used the word legendary. Today, they overuse the word legendary. That's when they want to give you respect. They call you legendary if you're over a certain age. But it's good to get the love from the people after such a long time. So I accept all accolades and in all forms and phrases.
Another question then is, when you were doing the battles, because I know we're jumping around here a bit, but with My Part of Town in particular, the cutting on that is just so funky. Was that kind of a standard sort of level in the battles, or were you kind of just way ahead of people in what you were doing?
Well, I figured out that I didn't want to play football because it seemed like too much physical exercise for me. I didn't want to be out there doing deep knee bends. And I took more of a liking to practicing and dealing with records. And I had a great friend, as we discussed, that took me step by step along the way. Across the street from my house was a little playground called Hart Park, and they used to have breakdance battles in that park. And I used to look through the gate like that and say, "Damn, maybe one day I could do something like I'm watching them do right now." And the couple people that I saw that was in there turned out to be members of Tuff Crew. And they already had a group put together called Tuff, Tuff, The Unforgettables. And I seen it on the back of their jacket, you know what I mean? So I got equipment and stuff like that. Now I'm trying to figure out how am I going to work my way into becoming a DJ for this group, because it seems like it's right in front of my face. Maybe if I had enough courage, or maybe if I practice enough, or maybe if I practice enough and have enough courage, I could one day approach them. And then one day Yo-Yo was in there DJing for them. So he told me they were over there, and the relationship started that way between me and them. One thing that helped is that Ice Dog's girlfriend used to live right across the street from my house. So we used to see him, we could get the beat on him. That was a breakdance crew called Street City Rockers. All those dudes that used to be in there was from like a breakdance crew, but a few of them were rappers. And one of the rappers was Easy C, and the other rapper was Ice Dog. And they would become two of the first members of Tuff Crew. Even though Easy C is no longer with Tuff Crew, there was a lot of different members of Tuff Crew early on before it finally formed into the final version that you see on the internet.
Yeah, and when you kind of approached them, they already had a DJ, right?
Yeah, they had a DJ named Shiver, and they already had a record out that said Shiver, Shiver. So every time I used to be on stage, they're calling out another DJ's name. I was feeling some type of way. I said, when I get my chance to shine, I'm going to burn it down.
So how do you go about then being like, right, these guys have got a DJ already, but I think I can smoke him. I think I should be their DJ. How do you kind of go, right, I'm just going to do this, and like sort of work your way in there and take over?
Well, I had to battle my way into that position because there was a couple other DJs in the neighborhood who also had this same idea. And there was an event set up at a church recreation center called Newman Hall, where I battled a couple other DJs, and I had a Coca-Cola shirt on. I remember, when Coca-Cola was the shit. And I became DJ for Tuff Crew by battling two other people, or let's say I became one of the two DJs for Tuff Crew. Now I had a second mission. I got to get rid of him. You know what I mean? I got to outshine him so much that he gets chopped.
So was that a long process, or did you kind of get rid of him quickly?
All of that happened pretty much overnight. I graduated from high school in June of 1986, and by 89 we were on tour with Luke Skywalker and LaJuan Love, the De La Soul, Rob Bass and Easy Rock, EPMD, Salt and Pepper, Public Enemy.
So is this before or after the first albums come out?
The first album was actually called Fan Jam.
Yeah.
And it had two songs on there that we produced for the Crown Rulers. One was called Kick the Ball, and the other one was called B-Boy Document.
So how I don't think I've ever known kind of a split album in that way before.
Yeah, my manager, Tony Mitchell, to the Godfather Mitch, got things all hemmed up. A-Tech in Effect, West Oak Lane. He used to bring groups to Philly and put shows together. So I met people from him putting shows together in Philly, and also him being the owner of So Def Records, and also him being the manager of Tuff Crew. I met Milk and Giz, MC Light, Positive K, Big Daddy Kane, Biz Markie, a whole bunch of different people he brought there. But one so significant group that he brought was named Ultramagnetic MCs. When they came to Philly, they ended up staying in Philly for maybe a month and a half. and they taught us a lot about how to make beats on the SP12 because we didn't have an SP12 at that time. So the changeover between Fan Jam with crown rulers was the ultramagnetic injection.
Right.
And that now that we're armed with the information, Said, Kool Keith, Mo Love, TR Love, they blessed us with another unexpected incredible gift.
Yeah.
And now we had the knowledge on how to work SP12, and we ended up making Danger Zone, which had my part of town, Open Field Attack, It's Mad, North Side, Smooth Momentum, Deuce Ace Housing.
Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying One to DJ. I wanted to create a product for the listeners to be able to support the show and for the guests as a token of gratitude for being on. So I've teamed up with Sure Shot Shop to create some One to DJ 45 RPM adapter clamps. These are my weapon of choice as a 45 adapter as they add stability and grip to aid you in any setup. These are available for £25 each plus flat fee postage from onetodj.bigcartel.com. And if you'd like to see the other models you can buy and also customise, check out sureshotshop.com. If you're an avid collector of timeless music on vinyl but don't have the budget to fork out for those pricey originals, then look no further than Be With Records. From library music to yacht rock, jazz, hip-hop, disco and beyond, Be With lovingly reissue some of the coolest classics. All of their records are carefully remastered and cut to the highest standards to make sure the pressings are of peak audio quality and do justice to the music being released. And something else to note is that they don't do limited runs to drive up resale and hype. If the demand is there, they'll repress as the focus is the music, not the profit margin. They have flat rate shipping and free UK shipping on orders over £60. And if you head to bewithrecords.com and use the discount code ONCEADJ, all one word, you'll get 10% off your order. So head to bewithrecords.com and level up those crates today. Yeah. So at what point were you doing the touring that you mentioned before with everyone? Was that before or after the second album?
After the second album.
Right, got it.
Immediately after the second album, because that seemed to take on a life of its own. We signed to Warlock Records because of the success of Kick the Ball and B-Boy Document. Although that album was a Tough Crew album, the two songs on there that made the most noise wasn't Tough Crew songs. Nonetheless, we still profited off of that by getting a solo deal, and Crown Rulers got a deal as well with Adam Levy from Warlock Records in New York. Almost immediately after that, it was only released in 9 states, according to the distribution arms, but it ended up being overseas in the Netherlands and all kind of different places. There was even a group from the Netherlands called Royal Jelly, King B, who made two songs that sound exactly like Tough Crew. One is called Must Be the Music, and the other one is called Back by Dope the Man, and they actually sampled Tough Crew in Back by Dope the Man.
Right, yeah. So we're kind of going here and there now. There's just something I want to ask you before we get on to King B, because that's a really significant point for me in my education.
Yes.
So just to check then, you said that the Ultramagnetic showed you how to make beats with an SP1200 or an SP12. What was the benefit and the difference to using the MPC 60 for the beats? What kind of wisdom did they give you?
Yeah, maybe my timelines, because I'm jumping around so much. I didn't get the MPC 60 until after Tough Crew broke up.
Right.
Prior to that, we used a Casio RZ1, a Roland 707, Roland 909, and then we stumbled upon an 808. So we got to play with the original bass machine, the 808.
Yeah.
And then Ultra came. So we ended up incorporating the 808 with the SP1200 on a song called What You Don't Know, where I was blending it because there was no like SMPTE to lock it in on the 808. So you had to like blend it using the sort of pitch control. But on the 808, it's called tempo. But to blend it with the record, it was a constant punching. But it was cool. It was cool to do it that way.
Yeah, one of my friends got an 808 recently, and he just showed me that how kind of out the box, the sounds are actually quite weak, aren't they, if you don't sort of engineer them well?
Yeah.
I was really surprised by that, because I've had like sample packs of 808s, and I'm like, it just sounds really kind of, really weak. But when you get the actual machine, it's not that much different.
No, it depends on maybe your engineer in the final process.
Yeah. So yeah, just coming on to King B then. I was quite late getting into hip hop, and my knowledge isn't probably what I would like it to be compared to my peers. Um, but my sort of first tastes of it are through hearing sort of old school rap on like dance music DJs tapes in the UK in say early to mid 90s, when there's certain things where they would speed up hip hop and put it in their mixes and stuff. And there was one mix by a guy called Stu Allen, who's no longer with us, and he put Back by Dope Demand in his, which was actually sort of a hard house mix. And I was like learning all the lyrics and stuff, because to me it was just so funky.
Oh wow, that's dope.
So then when I heard you, I was like, hang on a second. This is basically like King B have basically sort of identikit cloned this song. Like everything about the like the flows and the cadences and stuff like that. It's just my part of town, isn't it? Like,
yeah, it is. I was fortunate enough to perform in Amsterdam. We performed in Eindhoven as well. But King B came to the Amsterdam show. We brought him back to the green room, and we had a great moment there with a couple other people from the Netherlands. Just because it was amazing for them to see us finally, get together. And we've often thought about King B for so many years, and just last year, it came into reality that I was in the same room with King B, great gentleman. And
yeah, because
we had a great photo op right there with a live audience too.
I guess at that time it kind of, it's close to that sort of hip house stuff that was going on, but it's still not hip house. It's just really funky rap.
Yep.
So when you guys heard about Back by Dope Demand, and you heard it and then realised how close it was to my part of town, did you feel flattered by it or annoyed by it? What was the sentiment?
People were coming up to us saying, "Yo, y'all got a new song out?" And we were like, "No, just the Danger Zone album." And it was like, "Yeah, y'all do. Y'all got a new song out. It's on the radio right now." So it was already playing on the radio over here. And at first, it was a little weird for us, because we didn't know where it came from or who it was. But after some time, I started playing it on my own mixtapes and adopted it like it was part of the Danger Zone system, because they had the same sound and feel. So I put it on a lot of my mixtapes that we were out there selling in the streets early on.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. Something else I thought about in terms of Ultramagnetic legacy was the other artist I'm quite familiar in that world is Tim Dog. Did you guys sort of cross paths?
I was Tim Dog's DJ for like a month and a half. During the breakup of Tough Crew, Ultramagnetic was going to sign some kind of management deal with a gentleman from Philly who later turned out to be, not who he said he was or whatever. But I did get to meet Tim Dog, and from the transition of Tough Crew, ending to the solo career, Too Tuff solo career beginning, I had to kind of get used to DJing for other people. So it was a good place to start with Tim Dog as the first other person, other than Tough Crew and Mechanism that I DJ'd for.
I mean, talking about people not being who they supposed to be, did you ever see the Dateline thing about him?
Yeah, I did. I know the history of it. We just keep Tim Dog in ever presence, everlasting remembrance, because of his "Fuck Compton" song and the energy that he brought to the Ultramagnetics as a out of nowhere.
Yeah, and I mean, he's very sort of colourful, wasn't he? But like some of his beats are incredible. Again, it's that really funky stuff that's coming out of the sort of Ultramag camp, really.
Yeah, but Chorus Line is the main one that he's on that got him his name out there with, but he had a lot of stuff, Step to Me. There was a lot of dope Johns that said that, for Tim Dog that skyrocketed him pretty quickly. And then
Yeah.
just like that, poof, Tim Dog was gone.
So at what point, because something else I noticed in my research was that you guys signed to the William Morris agency at some point, and this is like Charlie Chaplin's old agency, like
Yes.
the sort of legacy involved in that. How did that happen?
William Morris was the booking agents that picked us up after, my part of town made a bunch of noise. We ended up going on tour on the Luke Skywalker Move Something tour, and we were also added to the LL Cool J Nitro tour. So we went on both of those tours, and William Morris used to send a talent scout out to, appraise the group's performance to, see what the price was going to be for maybe the next shows or what they could command at a later date for other events. Just recently in 2024, actually 2022, I was able to perform with Tuff Crew for the first time outside the United States in Helmond, Netherlands at Urban Matters. And then they brought me back to Urban Matters in 2023. I performed with Mantronics. And then they brought me back to Urban Matters in 2024. And I got to debut my rap career. Instead of just a DJ, I started rhyming because during the tour with Kool Keith brought me out from behind the turntables in, again, Amsterdam, which was a special night, ultra Too Tuff performance there. It was a special night where I got to rhyme in front of a packed house of people, and they really gave me an awesome, reception, much more than I thought I would get being a rhymer. They was going nuts, but I also was given 15 minutes to DJ before Ultra on every one of those 13 shows while we were in Germany, Switzerland, Denmark, the UK, Belgium. I had an amazing time. It was like the greatest gift that I ever received, that I received back from Ultramagnetic 35 years later from the last time that I saw them, in 2024. I ended up becoming their DJ. I don't know if that 35 number is right, but some odd decades later,
Yeah.
Said G told me, be ready. And then about 4 weeks later, he was like, you've been added to the tour. I was like, man, incredible experience. I got to go out there and show off my scratch skills, and then I got to also DJ for Ultra. And there was a lot of people in the crowd out there with Ultra vinyl, and there was a lot of people in the crowd with Tuff Crew vinyl. So it was great. Surprisingly, I was surprised to be equal build there, and I was surprised to. It was the first time I had ever done 13 shows in 18 days, especially in Europe. I had been to Europe twice before that, and then it was just the whole motherload. It was great. Salute to Ultramagnetic, said G, TR Love. My boy Rapid Fire. I had a great dude. He lives in Bristol. His name is Rapid Fire. His real name is Brent Suleiman. He put the merch together. He worked the merch table. So for the first 7 shows, until we sold out of merch, he didn't get to see the shows because he was working the merch table. So maybe we'll figure out a different way. I just wanted to salute everybody that was on the team with us.
Yeah, his name does ring a bell, but I'm not sure why.
They call him Rapid Fire. I can't forget about Mark Davis as well from Black Pegasus Records. He was the road manager. He was told to keep track of Kool Keith. That's a rough job right there. That's a rough job. I don't want it.
Have you got any really fond memories from the touring in the 80s then? Because they're like big, high-profile tours, right?
The Move Something tour. In the middle of our tour with Luke Skywalker, they started shooting in the middle of the crowd. There was some gunshots went off. And this was at Roberto Clemente Baseball Stadium. So the stage was set where the outfield would be. And all of the spectators were just in the field. And they evacuated it. They took us back to the hotel. And shortly after that, we were in a hotel and we heard EPMD. I shot the sheriff, because we could see the stadium out the balcony of our hotel, and the show continued and it went on. We made the news that night in Miami that night. Tuff Crew was on the news. Shootout at local rap show.
Crazy. So what happened and caused you guys to break up?
Well, we didn't feel like, the contracts that Tony Mitchell had on Tuff Crew were a year early compared to the contracts that Warlock gave him. So members, management contracts ran out, as well as, the So Def contracts, which means, Tough Crew was signed to So Def Records. So Def Records had a distribution deal with Warlock. Tough Crew never had a distribution deal with Warlock. We had a deal with So Def. So as the trickle-down theory works, one person gets paid, another person gets paid. So at some point, it may break down, and you may not receive what you might not even have evidence that you're supposed to receive anything. So you don't really know what's going on behind the scenes because you're an up and coming artist. You're not the record company, owner, manager, investor. So many groups in Philly learned the hard way like that. Jewel T and Dollar Bill, Steady B and Cool C.
Is this because of Tony Mitchell specifically, or was there...
No, this was just an ongoing business practice in the music industry. Pretty much, I can only tell you the versions from Philly because I never got burned by anybody from any other city. But I can tell you that it was going on, and it was pretty much running rampant. It even extended into the live show performances. Well, we've all seen it. A promoter books a group, books an act. People don't show up, something happens where he doesn't have the money to pay him, and then there's a situation that occurs. Things happen. I learned over the years that those opportunities were before opportunities that I was bitching about. I didn't get paid, or I didn't get paid enough. Those were the very opportunities that was molding the future and allowed me to meet some of the people that I met and would never meet again, and meet some of the people that I met and they would come and pick me up and take me on a world tour 30 years later. So you never know. I'm just happy that I was able to have good interactions throughout the whole hip hop journey. And it's been an incredible journey. Anytime I got into any kind of situations, maybe with drug addiction, jail, incarceration, getting shot, getting stabbed, becoming homeless, there was always somebody from the hip hop community who recognized me, a fan, a record label executive or something, a dude from the record store, and I always got bits and pieces of love from the universe, from complete strangers who may have recognized me in a not so great situation that I might have been in, and God still sent them over to check out and make sure I was all right.
Yeah. So just kind of thinking of that then, and the sort of world around drugs and things. When you guys were sort of on that ascension, were you in that world at all at that time? Like in the streets?
Yeah, after Tough Crew broke up and after a short time of me doing stuff on my own, which I never really stopped doing anything, but it got to the lean years around 1996. 1993, I went to jail for a short time. And I came out and my whole life had kind of changed, my living situations and stuff like that.
Can I ask what you went to jail for?
I went to jail probably for drug possession or maybe bench warrants that I never went to court for. I caught a bunch of different cases. But I met this dude named Dino, and he was a big time drug dealer down Kensington in North Philly. So after my short run as, Too Tuff, I made a couple albums and did some solo stuff, which came out not that long ago, called The Lost Archives. I had these tapes, and I still have the tapes to this day with a bunch of different 80 or 90 different songs on there. But I met this drug dealer dude named Dino, and I became second in charge of running around throughout the streets, flying on airplanes, flying back with undisclosed material on me in those airplanes going to different cities. And that ended in 2000 with the World Trade Center situation that occurred. You couldn't bring any more, contraband onto airplanes. That was probably around my low point. I touched on homelessness there, worked as a grill cook, worked at Pizza Hut, didn't have any equipment. 2006 arrives, 2007, I meet a person that I went to high school with named Tim McCluskey. He creates me a MySpace page, and we catch the attention of DJ Z-Trip, who says that he's a huge fan of Too Tuff, and Modeled his scratch style after Too Tuff. Z-Trip brings me out to Studio B in Brooklyn, and also brought me out to Central Park with Kid Capri, Rakim, another rapper named Rhyme Fest.
Mm.
And that was the beginning of sort of the comeback, 2006, 2007, 2008. In 2009, I was still trapped in an addiction in Kensington. And I knocked on a police officer's window. And he asked me my name and birth date. And I gave it to him, and he locked me up for a body warrant that I had for an aggravated assault that had occurred 6 months prior to that. I went to jail. I had 2 cancer operations on my neck. They diagnosed me with thyroid cancer. I had 2 cancer operations. I came home, got to put on a suit and tie. I thought I was going to jail for 4 to 8 years. But when I went to court that day, after being released, I was there for 10 and a half months. I came home for 3 days, and I went back to court, and they threw the charges out, dismissed the case, and it was back to the, for me, it was back to normal behavior, which was, back to my addiction. One thing that I can say is that throughout the whole situation from 1986 up until today, where I have 5 years clean now, I can tell you that drugs and weed and alcohol, smoking cigarettes, stuff like that was an inherent part of trying to fit in. I felt like if I didn't snort coke, if I didn't smoke turbos, if I didn't smoke weed, if I didn't smoke cigarettes, they might not like me as much as if I did do those things, So it was a lot of peer pressure early on before I discovered myself, which hasn't been that long that I've had, some sort of awakening to see what means something and what doesn't. I got a 28-year-old daughter and a 10-year-old son. So it's good to be able to look back on a legacy and see that even though I may have been tarnishing my own life as much as possible, the legacy of Tuff Crew and the Too Tuff, scenario wasn't so tarnished because it kind of stood the test of time. And it was one of the things that I was able to hold on to when it seemed like everything else was falling apart.
Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying Want to DJ. I wanted to create a product for the listeners to be able to support the show and for the guests as a token of gratitude for being on. So I've teamed up with Sure Shot Shop to create some Want to DJ 45 RPM adapter clamps. These are my weapon of choice as a 45 adapter, as they add stability and grip to aid you in any setup. These are available for £25 each plus flat fee postage from wantodj.bigcartel.com. And if you'd like to see the other models you can buy and also customise, check out sureshotshop.com. If you're an avid collector of timeless music on vinyl but don't have the budget to fork out for those pricey originals, then look no further than Be With Records. From library music to yacht rock, jazz, hip-hop, disco and beyond, Be With lovingly reissue some of the coolest classics. All of their records are carefully remastered and cut to the highest standards to make sure the pressings are of peak audio quality and do justice to the music being released. And something else to note is that they don't do limited runs to drive up resale and hype. If the demand is there, they'll repress, as the focus is the music, not the profit margin. They have flat rate shipping and free UK shipping on orders over £60. And if you head to bewithrecords.com and use the discount code ONCEADJ, all one word, you'll get 10% off your order. So head to bewithrecords.com and level up those crates today. So, with that sort of time in the streets, was it the sort of relationship with drugs that kind of took you there, and kind of substance abuse that took you into that world?
Yeah, when I graduated from high school, we ran into an extraordinary amount of powder cocaine that summer, 1986. So it was me from going from being a prep scholar, a prep school academic scholar, to going right to the corners and selling bags of powder cocaine on the block, which escalated to selling crack, selling heroin, selling pills, selling all kind of stuff. That whole Badlands, Kensington neighborhood it was just all drugs, and it wasn't that far away. So the lure to get quick money, or the lure to catch a bit of the excitement that you were going to see, where, you know, Puerto Rican boys driving around with 1.8s with the music so loud you can't even, you know, they pull up next to your car is vibrating. There was a whole electricity to that thing, you know. A lot of people are dying down there now, though. It's not so electric down there because the heroin situation turned to fentanyl. Fentanyl turned to
Mm.
trank, and there's a lot of people out there walking around in a serious state of physical and mental illness. But you know, that's the neighborhood that I grew up with. Such was the path that I was given, you know.
When you were kind of in that world, was there ever times where you'd be in a situation, say, doing something you shouldn't be doing, to put it sort of broadly, where someone would recognise you from Tough Crew and be like, "Oh, you're Too Tuff, right?"
Many, 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 many times. Many times. If I was doing something that I wasn't supposed to be doing, then I didn't want to be seen doing that by anybody. So if I was recognized, I wouldn't run and hide, of course, but it was unexpected for me because I wasn't expecting to be noticed in that situation. Oftentimes on the L in Philly, I would be sitting on the L train going downtown to get records, and I would see somebody over there looking at me. I can tell that they're looking at me. I just feel them looking. And I used to be getting ready to fight. You know, I'm like, this fucking keeps looking at me. But then when we get off the train, they would say something like, "Too tough." You know what I mean? After the doors closed, and then you see them screaming "Too tough" as the train goes by. So I learned to adjust, you know, my awareness from being hyper vigilant to kind of being aware that people may know who you are. And then many, many years later, being able to make the transition into doing the next right thing, no matter who's looking. Oh, that's different.
Mm.
That's different. Do the next right thing no matter who's looking. That means, what kind of person are you when you're by yourself? You know, if you find a wallet, you're going to keep it. You're going to, you know, if somebody breaks down and got a flat tire right next to you, you're going to keep driving. Hey, you know, different situations call for different actions. Today, I know
Yeah.
that by helping other people, I'm more able to help myself. And that only came as a direct result of my mission as an addict, powerless over certain things in my life. Like what? Well, I'm powerless over my ability to change someone else. I can't change them, but I'm not powerless over my ability to change me and the way that I think. Also, I'm not powerless to help somebody else. I found out that helping people helps me.
Yeah.
This is a different way of life. It opened up more doors in hip hop for me than the other way.
That's interesting. Because I mean, it must be strange because sometimes when you've taken something that you shouldn't necessarily have taken in the eyes of the law, it can make you very paranoid afterwards. You know, so it must be strange when you're sitting there, and that's just, you know, if I was sitting on a bus somewhere and someone kept looking at me, I'd feel a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's without having taken anything that you're not supposed to take. But if you have, you know, that paranoia just amplifies, and that must be mad when you're kind of a face, a local celebrity, you know.
Yeah, it is. It definitely is. At sometimes it was humiliating. You know what I mean?
Mm.
But we can remember that those were times when maybe we were being reminded of who we really are. You know, when somebody recognizes you and you're in some type of different state of mind, drunk or high, and somebody comes up and shows you love for you know, they know your songs, they're singing the words, they're singing the lyrics to your old song. It can be a touch back to reality when you go home after all of that ends and it's just you with yourself, and there ain't no more high, there ain't no more drunk. Those are the moments that you use to bounce back from the bottom, you know, and start to climb back up. So it was always galvanizing for me, for somebody to, regardless of what I may have been doing to myself, for them to recognize me. That gave me a certain sense of self-esteem for something that I accomplished that they still remember me for. Maybe I can use it as a springboard.
Mm. What was it like getting the diagnosis, the cancer diagnosis, while you were in jail? I mean, that's got to be. I mean, I apologise if that's a really ridiculous question, but that's got to just be make you think a lot about what the world is and purpose and things like that.
Well, I was sitting in a jail cell, and the dude, one of the dudes that his soul was right down a little bit. He came in with the newspaper and he was like, "Yo, Tuff, you're in the newspaper today." And he showed me the newspaper that said Too Tuff battling cancer as the headlines in the entertainment section. And it kind of hit home, for that one. But there were so many other things going on. It almost represented a special position for me to be able to go in and out of jail. I didn't mind going I didn't have no choice but to go. But I didn't mind being taken in and out of the jail. It kind of broke up the monotony of being there 10 and a half months. It might sound crazy. If somebody would ask you, you can have everything that you want. You're going to get everything that you want in life. But first, you're going to go to jail and you're going to have 2 cancer surgeries and you're going to come home and then you're going to be homeless. Then you're going to struggle with drug addiction. Would you agree to accept the offer that they're saying? We'll give you everything that you dreamed about. Now I might not be financially set where I have everything that I dream about. But as far as being in situations and having performed and experienced different hip hop eras, as well as hip hop in different countries, it's been the greatest blessing that I've ever received in my life to have it occur over and over and over for so long. Something that I just used to dream about being a DJ, and I've become somewhat of a trailblazer. It still brings me a massive amount of joy to make mixtapes, do my albums for Chuck D, battle myself here with I got an MPC X now. So now I can battle myself, That's why I call my album Me Versus Me, because it's really me battling myself for the majority of the days. The only time I don't battle myself is when I'm asleep.
It's interesting though. Do you think, and I'm going to really struggle to word this because we're getting kind of philosophical. So you said if you could have everything that you want, but you've got to have been through these experiences, do you think these experiences give you or contribute to having the perspective that makes you appreciate those things as being the things that you want?
Yes. I think it builds character. I think that a massive amount of pain will bring about a massive amount of change. Maybe not all at once, because the pain can come all at once, but the change may not come all at once. So you got to be willing to take small steps. Before I could release a solo album on Chuck D's label, I had to make it through a bunch of other stuff, but I also had to create the actual beats. I'd never made an album before on my own. I made it with Tuff Crew, and I scratched over top of beats that LA Kid created, and I made beats that I scratched over top of the LA Kid engineered, and we had a production team who basically did the mix downs and stuff like that. I didn't write the rhymes. So now, being a self-contained artist now with a desire to be able to do solo shows, as well as shows with Tuff Crew, as well as DJ for other, legendary hip hop groups. Those things I can only dream about those things again. And all of those things came true, but they all took a pretty extensive amount of time as well to come true.
Yeah. So what was the first step to the sort of rebirth in terms of the DJing? Was it the project with Z-Trip?
It was around that time. Z-Trip sent me, after having met him and talked to him, MySpace, and we did the social media thing, and then met him the 2 times in New York, watch him perform. He mailed me in Federal Express a Tascam 688 MIDI production studio, which operates by cassette tapes. You store all of the beats that you're making, and all of the vocals gets recorded on a cassette tape, which is split into 8 tracks. And those are the same tapes that I still have. Those are the tapes that appear on the cover of my Lost Archives album. And I've held those tapes through the whole homeless, in jail with cancer, shot, stabbed, and all of that. Those tapes are still here in my room with me today. And there's a plethora of songs on there that I haven't released yet. But it's been a great journey. So my first step into rebirth, from coming from a rough life, that was mostly because of decisions that I made about myself that made it a rough life. Um, Z-Trip sent a Tascam 688, and I was able to transfer those songs that I did in 1993, go to New York with a gentleman named Jason Zodos, and we transferred everything from the tapes. We remixed them. We took the hiss out of in the DAW, we took the hiss out, and we were able to get a deal where Peanut Butter Wolf wrote the opening credits to that album. It was called Tough Crew, DJ Too Tuff's Lost Archives. It was released on Traffic, and just 2023, it was re-released on vinyl through Rough Nation. So that one was a really special album. That was the first album that I released as a so-called solo artist. But really, that album was to stir up drama within Tough Crew, to try to plant the seeds for a reunion. I wanted to get their attention because a lot of the members of Tough Crew were rhyming on that album, So nobody really got anything off of that album except me. So I know that they would come out of the woodwork wondering where their cut is. And that was a good way to get the crew back together. It worked.
So, yeah, that's amazing. So, looking at some of the sort of things you've been through around the hustling and some of those sorts of incidents, there's been a lot of things that have gone on there with a lot of different people. You've had kind of a crazy time, and yet you still managed to keep hold of all those tapes and not lose them. That's pretty sort of phenomenal.
Pretty amazing.
Considering all you've been through. I guess it just shows sort of how much you care about that music.
Even when I didn't have equipment, people would hand me stuff. Like, I got an extra 1,200 right here. If you want to stop up on Friday, I'm at the club. I know you just came home. There were always gifts from the universe that ended up being little pieces like, Transformers, where you need the arm, the wrist, the hand, the shoulder. So there was always the universe blessing me with different gifts that there was like a big arrow pointing back to, like, this way. Hip hop is your path. Continue along the journey. I'm gonna arm you with the needed items.
Yeah. So, how did that sort of reforming with Tough Crew work? Was it you that kind of did they all sort of come out of the woodwork and you kind of whipped everyone together, and then it went from there?
Yeah, I tried to become a spearhead. I tried to be the motivating force behind picking the Skull and Crossbones logo up out of the trash can where everybody walked away and left it, giving it some love, polishing it up, releasing some stuff underneath the Skull and Bones moniker, the same Tough Crew flag. And that's what I did. And as I said, people started to notice. They never forgot about Tough Crew. Their question always was, what happened to y'all? Because it was another quick disappearance like Tim Dog. My pleasure to have been able to drop a new album with the same, three gentlemen from Tough Crew, LA Kid, Ice Dog, and Tone Love. We dropped one in 2023 called Back by Dope Demand. It's out there right now on vinyl and all platforms through Rough Nation. Salute to Chris Schwartz and Eric Victor from Creep Recording Studio. We got to go back in after 33 years and do it all over again. Same four dudes. It was similar to when I got to finally go overseas with Ice, LA, and Tone. Because I wanted to do it with the original members, sort of as like a payback for opening doors for me that lasted for so very long.
And I guess the nice thing is now that it's because you're someone that's obviously sort of loved and held close by so many people. It's just in this day and age, it's so much easier to connect with those people and find the people that do want to go, yeah, we want to put your record out and stuff. It's sort of amazing that we're in a world where that exists now, and you've not got to it's not got to be the people within a 20-mile radius of you. Because it sounded like something in my notes. It sounded pretty mad, sort of the story of Tony Mitchell, really. Is that something you can talk about a bit more?
Mitch came out of the clear blue sky. I'd never seen him before in my life. And he showed up at that little park that I was telling you about, Hart Park. And he said that he was putting together a rap group. And he had Tone Love and LA Kid with him. And maybe they kind of already had, came there to meet Ice Dog. and he was there as the leader of this street breakdance crew. And he came in a limousine, and I remember him specifically giving everybody some money. He came like a big shot. And once I got the chance to interact, maybe over the next 3 months, probably by the end of the summer, I had become the DJ for Tuff Crew. If we got in trouble, Mitch would bail us out of jail. Every day we had to get on the trolley and go up to Mitch's house in West Philly on 56 and Girard for practice. It was like, we did a lot of music there, don't get me wrong, but it was also practice on how to roll joints, practice on how to get drunk better without crashing the car, practice on which drug corners had the best powder and stuff like that on the way home. Mitch would tell us, "I'm gonna give you the car to go drop Too Tuff off at home. Come right back." You know what I mean? Telling LA. And we wouldn't come back until 7 in the morning. It'd be daylight out there, and he was dropping me off. So there was a lot of good times. Mitch was like a father figure to us, regardless of what happened in the music part, where who got paid and who didn't get paid, or who was lying or who wasn't lying. I've modeled my business plan, the way that I approach music business after how Mitch did. I don't burn nobody, of course. And I try not to get in situations where it looks like I've burned somebody. So I found that honesty is the best policy. But I also know that the music industry is a treacherous business. So sometimes we need to, use the power move as an option as well. So Mitch taught me a lot. I was able to see him again just a couple years ago. I got his phone number. I speak to him on the phone. I've forgiven him. And I've thanked him and told him that I'm forever grateful to him for allowing me to be the DJ for Tuff Crew and taking a crazy extraordinary ride. I think I met him and took a picture with him at the High and Mighty reunion at Kung Fu Necktie in Philly, or maybe it was Sean Price show. I think it was Sean Price. One of those two.
Were you close to Sean Price? Did you know him well?
I only met him that one time. I met him. I was the house DJ for Sean Price in Philly, and he passed away about a month later. So I did get to take pictures with Sean Price and had a good time laughing and joking with him.
Because he's someone that people speak very highly about.
Cool Keith is another one that I had the chance to just be with him for 18 days. Check in and out of hotels, do sound checks, be in the green room, being around those dudes is forever energy charge up for me. And I often called him, just out of the clear blue. I'd be like, "Yo, you took me on the most amazing journey in my life last year. Now I'm trying to figure out how to outdo that." One thing that takes a lot of pressure off of me is when I get this bright idea about I'm doing all of this, there's no possible way that I could have done any of that. All I did was take small steps in the direction of my dreams. And then things start to happen that involve other people. So I don't give myself so much credit other than being consistent and having a passion for the music and creating it.
Yeah, and, I think to have been through what you've been through, still be creating and being kind of as active as ever, just it's testament to the passion.
Thank you.
And the talent, obviously. Something else I wanted to ask you about was roller rinks and their sort of importance to hip hop culture. What was that experience growing up, and why were they such a big sort of source of influence and performance in hip hop?
Well, I was never really a skater, but I did DJ at a lot of those skating rinks. That was a friendly atmosphere where there can also be kids there. So it was giving you a chance to get your music heard, not only by adults who were 18 or 21 who could drink at a bar, but by a smaller, a lower age bracket. And that's always good for longevity when you can get kids to like your songs. It's going to stay alive longer because they're going to be alive longer, right? But one thing that the roller skating ring gave for me and for Tuff Crew is we happen to make a roller skating classic. My part of town is like up there with bounce, rock, skate, and all of that. It seems like It has to be over 114 beats per minute. It has to be up tempo to be one of them Doing It in the Dark, something like that. All of those
Mm,
skating ring joints. And I did a mixtape a while ago. The best skating songs to skate to. Yo-Yo was a really good skater. So sometimes I would go there to the skating ring with him, but I would just have to play the sideline and play Space Invaders or Asteroids or something. I wasn't the greatest skater.
yeah, because you just see in sort of pop culture representation of 80s hip hop, you see quite a lot of stuff that occurs in roller rinks. I think that was where quite a lot of the early West Coast stuff happened as well.
I believe the skating rings in Philly was one of the first places where you could see like a surprise performance. Maybe somebody rapping at the skating ring. I remember going to the skating ring less than 10 years ago and seeing Tila Rock there. Tila Rock was rhyming live at the skating ring in Philly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I saw Tila Rock down at Atlantic City, the Legends of Hip Hop show as well. That's what I told him. As soon as I seen him, I said, that
Amazing.
was one of the early records that we scratched. Tila Rock Is Yours. That
Yeah.
that was like learning how to scratch with that record.
Are there any particular DJs over the years that have really impressed you? Sort of standouts?
I think DJs who have impressed me throughout the years, Terminator X was always a favorite of mine because I wanted to layer my scratches like I heard Bomb Squad and Public Enemy layer those scratches on Yo Bum Rush the Show and Nation of Millions. I also found out that Terminator X didn't do all of the scratches, so I understood that part as well. Shout out to Johnny Juice and DJ Lord, because whatever combination of scratches occurred on the Public Enemy albums, they heavily influenced my scratch style as well when it got to layering cuts on songs. Because scratching as a battle DJ is different than scratching on somebody's, 10-song album release.
Yeah.
DJ Scratch, another one who laces up the cuts on EPMDs. You got to be the 8-bar killer. If you want to make a name as a DJ on people's songs, you got to be an 8-bar killer. My part of town gave me the ultimate experience. I got to be an 8-bar killer 4 times on there. 2 8-bar breaks and a 16-bar joint at the end. It was more than enough for me to snap. And I didn't really even know what I was going to cut the night before until I found that Curtis Blow record. You don't want a lot. I said, oh shit, that's it. That's the answer. It came. And I played with it for a little while at home. And then I went there the next day to the studio with Tuff Crew. I think we were in Morningstar, where we recorded a recording studio called Morningstar. And they had professional engineers in a booth and all that, big studio. But I remember standing on top of a milk crate because I had my turntable set up on a baby grand piano and it was so high that I had to stand on something to be at the right level. And I did that, my part of town, in one take. That was one take through. Punch in for the first verse, punch in for the second verse, rock it to the end. So that was incredible for me. I surprised myself with that one. Everything seemed to come together in one mighty swoop right there.
Yeah, it's almost like I really, because I learnt guitar years before I learnt to scratch, and I don't like listening to myself scratch. I try and do too much, and I'll do that thing where you try and do too much technique rather than sitting in the pocket of the song. And I think it is you've just really kind of really nicely sort of highlighted the difference between being sort of a solo scratcher versus scratching on records for a group and stuff.
So I'm working on an album right now for Spit Slam. I got a working title and I got about 80 beats that I made. I've whittled it down with my partner Brent to about 16. I'm going to try to get it down to 12. Now, when I'm giving you all these double-digit numbers, I really only laid scratches on 0, but I do take it 2 at a time. I do it like a 12-inch single as was suggested to me. Take the first 2 songs, make the first 2 songs, so I'll go. And one issue that I've noticed last album, the album before, and this one too, is getting caught up in endless preparation. I'm scouring YouTube for any kind of Kensington newscast that talks about car crashes or murders, so I could take a little clip out of it and fly it in on the second verse. You know, I spend a lot of time in endless preparation, and I got the turntable. I haven't done any scratches yet for this new album that I hope to release in maybe 2 months. But it's well on the way. So we have the choices. But I made the beats myself, doing the scratches myself. There has to be somewhat of a theme. If you listen to my album Me versus Me, which is executive produced by Chuck D, that's kind of what I want to do, a sort of one like that, maybe with a little bit more, a little shorter, so the songs aren't so short, aren't so long. You know, some of those were almost 4 minutes. Behold the Detonator, some of the songs were 3 minutes and 30 seconds. One thing that I learned is that the songs have to be shortened to the point, because the attention span is not so much the same today, where they're going to stick around to listen to a third verse from Rakim, a third verse from Big Daddy Kane. And you know, there was always a third verse, but there's not really time with the crowded logistics of how it is in hip hop, especially trying to get it played on the radio. It's definitely never going to get to the third verse. Another thing that I learned is I don't have to scratch on every part of the song. I only need to come in and then let it breathe. So I learned how to let it breathe, because I'm on fire through the whole thing. You know, hey, let's take a minute. Let's let it breathe, because I was listening to Alan Watts. And Alan Watts, in one of the, you know, seminars that he held, was talking about when you stop, when it comes back in, it makes it that much more dramatic. So you have to use the silence the same way that there wouldn't be an earth if there wasn't blank space of the universe. You know, without the blank space, there couldn't be a thing. So it's a different perspective to look at it from. And I kind of applied it to music. I went and looked at a few other videos about intervals and, you know, take a breather.
Well, was it John Coltrane that talked about in jazz, it's about what you don't play as much as what you do?
Yes.
And I think for me personally, for a heavy amount of scratch DJs, it would be a really good thing to sort of take notice of. And I'm not saying that as a good scratch DJ. I'm saying it as someone who's listened to quite a lot of scratching. It's this, right, I've got to just get every technique in there, every technique. Whereas you hear the phrasing.
We found out that the spaces in between the scratches matter, because they build up dramatic, you know, a dramatic pause for the scratch to occur.
Yeah.
That's definitely a different thought process than being an 8-bar killer. 8-bar killer means I go massacre for 8 bars and leave and come back on another 8 bars. But now it's become a series of calculated arrangements where I got a sound clip flying in, and I know that I'm going to put the scratches underneath of it. Sort of like, show them how, show them how, you know. So we sampled the show them how, but I did the so it requires a little bit more thought process on how you're going to organize the tracks and the arrangement. Being that this will be my third solo album, I'm trying to, hopefully I've gotten better. I know that I haven't gotten quicker, but I know that I've gotten better.
I think it's feel though, isn't it? Like, and we can get sort of drawn into technique, whereas feel's the ultimate important thing. And I think resolve as well. So I was thinking about this the other day when I was getting annoyed with hearing myself scratch, is kind of forgetting to resolve the end of your phrase. It's like having your bookends. So you start by sort of scratching the sound, and then if you don't let the sound sort of play out at the end of a phrase, it just kind of takes away any sort of, I guess, pronunciation.
Yeah, you need to give it its proper impact, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes comedians, or even me, when I'm up there scratching, you say the punchline, and you might be too anxious to get into the next joke before you can accept the applause of the crowd. Let it fade, And now the next thing that you say, they're kind of like hanging on the edge of their seat for it. Instead of me
Yeah.
running through like somewhat of this interview that I do, I get an idea about a story. I'm running through all types of scenarios. You're like, wait, I didn't ask you anything about any of that stuff. And now we're on Jupiter somewhere in a high-speed car chase. I understand. That's the after effects of addiction.
No, like what you're saying about comedians and punchlines and stuff. That's a really good analogy for it, I think.
Yes.
Because it's the same. Because I used to, when I was like hanging out with people that were scratching, that were really good and technical and fast and tight and stuff, I'd just be thinking about phrasing of a rapper like a Rakim or say like Cool Keith, you know. Because with Keith, you think about change my pitch up, smack my bitch up. There's just one little example where that went as a line, how that was used by the Prodigy and this sort of second lease of life it got. And you just think about the change my pitch up, smack my bitch up, like the gap in there and stuff. It's got that punchline.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'd think about Rakim, even like Ludacris. Like you think about how like, you know, most MCs don't just go, you know, they let things breathe.
Take a breath along the way.
Yeah.
So, you know, nowadays, most of the trap and drill rap stuff, which since I'm still a DJ, and if I do parties, like, you know, clubs or something like that, then I still need to know what the banging the songs are for me to play. I'm not going to come to a club and play Big Daddy Kane and Cool G Rap, of course, unless it's an old school party, and then I'm cool. But every party is not an old school party, and the beats per minute of the new songs are like 80, 78, 82. So I started making beats like that, and that was what made it a little bit easier for me to try to become a rapper. Not to mention getting thrust out onto stage after I begged for the opportunity, and then it finally happened. I was like, "Oh shit!" You know what I mean? I think I adjusted well, and for me, the after effects of it, for me to big it up and promote it out, you know, how I became a rapper and all of that. I got a kid that is from the same area that I'm from, Kensington, named OT the Real, and I was fortunate enough to have him hire me after the Ultra Tour to go on tour as his DJ. I went with Benny the Butcher and Pretty Ricky Hyde, West Side Gun, and I was out there with a whole bunch of different people touring as OT's DJ, and it was a great time. So any kind of rap success that happens for me in the future, I'm giving it all to OT right now. No, he's been a great dude, man. Give me a super charge up. I do all my mixes and mastering and final edits and stuff with his boy Thorough 215. I always mention him on every interview. They've been instrumental in allowing Too Tuff, you know, the 50-plus-year-old, to knock a few decades off of my age and my demographic and move down into a situation with, you know, Benny and West Side Gun, Conway the Machine, and a lot of the gangster rappers from New York and Buffalo, Albany, stuff like that I listen.
They're all a little bit older, aren't they, anyway?
Yeah, they're all like 35. So it took me down 15, 20 years.
Oh, so yeah, so they're still... I thought they were... Because I'm early 40s. I know I don't look it. But, yeah, I thought they were a bit more like my age. I didn't realise they were still sort of mid-30s,
Yeah, 36, 35.
Yeah, no offence to anyone, obviously.
Those extra 15 years are valuable.
I had someone at the gym the other day saying, "Oh yeah," someone was like, "Oh, how old are you now?" And they said, "Oh, 24." And I thought, "Oh God, I wish I was 24 again." So what's next? What have you got coming up? I know when we were talking earlier, you were saying you want to get some more bookings around Europe. Is it in the summertime?
Yeah, last year at this time, I wasn't even in. We were currently on tour. On this date last year, we were currently on tour with Ultra. So maybe for me, I might be pressing a little bit because it seems late in the year, even though it's only March. By this time last year, I'd already started the first tour. In thinking of how to outdo last year, becomes a little bit pressurized situation. One thing that I want to do is I got an album that I committed to Chuck D for, a new album, another scratch one. I'll probably include 2 songs on there with me rhyming on it, break myself into the rap game easy with 2 songs with me rapping. And the rest of them are going to be, Terror Dome scratch attempts, some kind of craziness. I started writing my top 100 moments in my life as per an exercise that I saw online, where I was directed to go by a gentleman who writes for USA Today and the Philadelphia Inquirer. His name is Damon C. Williams. And he's he writes books, novelist, journalist. So I had this crazy ass idea that I want to write a book. So I called him one day and he was like, I think that's a great idea. I would love to co-write the book with you. So I started to write down the top 100 moments of my life after some hesitation. Again, over preparation, perfectionism, fear of it not being good enough. Instead of taking the steps, I'm stuck up here. I don't even want to try it because I could never, So we gotta come to a decision in our own mind to take action. And sometimes the smallest action can get the ball rolling. More small action, more small action, more small action. And suddenly, you're not overweight anymore. More small action, more small action. Suddenly, you haven't smoked crack in 5.5 years. More small action, more small action. We know how to use the MPCX with our eyes closed now, So now it's going back to something that gives me a little bit of a fear factor. Trying to live up to the Too Tuff from Tuff Crew in 2025. I got to match all of those scratches. Shit, even living up to the last album that I did seems like a daunting task because a lot, I wouldn't want to have to go back and redo those songs. Songs that I already did. So I know that it's a process and it's a creative process. And if I can, I'm supposed to enjoy it. It's not supposed to be whoosh, slinging a whip on yourself. So I've learned how to just take a breath. Again, we talk about the breath. Same thing with taking a breath. I started working out because I hurt my back. I went on tour with Cool G Rap to Helmond, Netherlands. And a couple of days before I left, I had a little tweak in my back, and it turned out to be a herniated disc, and now the after effects of arthritis and all of that. So I've been working out, doing stretches and push-ups. So I've had a rejuvenation just as far as changing my diet, tripling my water intake, eating lots of turmeric and cranberries and oatmeal and stuff like that. Stay away from the white foods like bread, pasta, rice, stuff like that, because I'm kind of overweight. It's getting a little up in age for me. I found out that when I eat the right foods, it helps me mentally as well, which also extends to my creative part. But I am the way that I dig into crates now is on YouTube. So I dig into crates every day. I might find just a little piece of something, one couple words, and I go download the whole thing because they got you can steal anything off YouTube with the YouTube downloader.
Yeah.
So I get everything, newscasts and everything.
I remember at one point just feeling like, oh yeah, you shouldn't sample off MP3s and whatever, but it's like it's whatever works for you, isn't it? And I think with what you're saying about sort of like getting news reports and things, that the variety in what you can get on YouTube is just insane.
I came from such a low quality era where everything was on cassettes, and if it was a bootleg cassette, it was even more muffled.
Yeah.
So now for me, the digital age is great for me. Maybe a little bit too much highs here and there with certain stuff, but for the most part, it's a definite improvement off of the muddy waters that we were surfing in with the 8-bit and 16-bit audio.
Yeah. It's been so good to chat to you, and it's so nice to hear that you've kind of, in spite of all the sort of challenges over the years, like things are going so well now, and you just seem in such a good place. Right, man, I'm going to let you get going, but yeah, that's been good.
Have a good day, man. It was great talking to you.
Likewise, and thanks for having the energy. You've kind of lifted me up, so yeah, I really appreciate that.
Keep me posted when it's going to premiere.
Yeah, it'll be about 2 weeks.
Oh, excellent. All right, cool. I'll be in touch, man. If you need me, I'm around.
Will do. Take care.
Peace and love, brother.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Once a DJ. If you'd like to support the show, then head to onceadj.com/support to find out how you can help. If you'd like to get in touch with any feedback or suggestions, email onceadjpodcast@gmail.com. Once a DJ is produced by the good people at Remote Control. If you'd like to find out more about working with them, head to remote-ctrl.co.uk.
Oh, that was nice.